Hello everyone, hello friends. Canada is on my agenda today. Naturally, as we anticipate these elections on the 28th of April, which will change everything. There's many positive signs, and I will show you as we go through the charts that yes, it will be change. What I wrote here is a difficult but healthy new beginning. Canada will get a new government, and this will really elevate the energy on the whole planet naturally, as Canada is one of these most oppressed countries at this point in history, as we certainly all have learned from what happened to the trucker convoy in 2022. That was a very clear signal, which went through as a shockwave really around the planet, as many of my friends in other countries have said too. Anyway, enough of that. That was probably a necessary event, and it totally ties into Canada's chart. That what the nature was of that event or series of events which led to that Emergency Act. So I'm looking most clearly here in this context at this Pluto-Saturn opposition, which is a harsh energy, which means taking obstacles in account and knowing how to deal with them honestly. This is energy which says, well, bring it on, I can deal with it. It's like all these harsh cold winters. That's also very Saturn, Pluto in those two signs. Interesting is it's in the first house angular. It's actually the only two planets aside from these asteroids which are in angular houses here in the Canadian chart, which is interesting. The 4th and the 10th are empty. So there's a big emphasis in general on the can I say it, the mutable houses, the cadent houses, the last of the season in that sense, which is the changing energy, the adaptability, the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th and the 12th house. So Canada with an Aries rising, really that pioneer energy into breaking new ground, going in a whole new direction with ideas and creation. However, the moon, the new moon here in late Gemini, and then the exact Sun-Uranus conjunction show that buzz, that cultural buzz we have here in Canada, and also that beautiful trine here with Jupiter and all these planets in the 12th house, which really show kind of a melting pot of humanity. All the different nations are really welcome here. This has been the most important reason for me to come here 28 years ago. That cosmopolitan, which I first experienced over in Montreal, which was a beautiful experience. So this is a Canadian trait, that openness to change, to everything different, new, the adaptability also with Pluto in the 1st house. An interesting little fact is that this chart, which I actually did correct a little bit, rectify by 9 minutes of arc using the Quebec referendum and also the introduction of the flag in 1965. These are the two events which I used in progressions to come up with this time of 014. And the 14 as such makes sense. It's that 5 energy of a dynamic development, of moving very fast, and naturally this is true for the Canadian base energy. We have a great, and it fits that changeability too, a great dynamic and dealing with things. Usually interesting were naturally the last 10 years, where we were a little bit going to the opposite end of the spectrum of really being dumbed down and sold for stupid. Anyway, that's it. Another story, I guess. In the bigger picture, these are important events too, as they opens the gate, prepared the ground for what's coming next, and it is fabulous what is coming. Now let me start you with this. Just look here at the Sun, Jupiter trine, and the new moon we have on the 27th will be exactly here in between, as you see here from the new moon chart here for Ottawa, 7:46. Now the 8th degree of Taurus is an interesting one. It is one of preparation for what's to come, for the great things which will be possible very soon. A new quality of being is of a getting ready for something which is not yet here, but we dream it into reality. That's kind of the base energy of the month of May, which will be spectacular in many levels, on many levels, many ways. But let me go back here to the Canadian chart for a moment. I want to say 2-3 more things. First, that late balsamic moon, there is something very wise about this late Gemini, and the ability to just take things as they are in the hexagram 15 actually, which is modesty. Yeah, if you ever have been in Canada, then you know that people here are really sweet, and they can be very apologetic. They say sorry about anything. It's actually, I guess, a worldwide known fact about Canadians. Anyway, the Jupiter in Pisces here with the South Node and Aries is an interesting fact, which is happiness and the ability to trust and to just be in that mode of receptivity Pisces brings. Neptune also, which rules Pisces, is here in the 12th house. Also all the water we have here in Canada is reflected in all of that, with Pisces here on the 12th house cusp. There's something universal, something collective. As I said before, a melting pot. That's why this nation has had such a high value all over the planet as virtuous and kind of neutral. The same actually with Switzerland, as you know, even though that is also not completely true, but that's yet another story. Neutrality is no more on this planet right now. Everybody has taken sides, so has Canada. Not all for the best, but again, this is up for change, I'm sure. So the right, that was the one thing I wanted to throw in. There's no interceptions in this birth chart of Canada, which is really interesting, important, unusual in a way, in a country which is mostly in the very high latitudes, where pretty much everybody born here has at least one pair of interceptions, meaning signs within a house with no house cusps going through, which are always kind of pressure chambers of developing a particular aspect of bringing it to such a compressed density and intensity that it finally is then breaching those limits, pushing the doors open to make itself seen and visible and heard, and then becoming something really prominent and important. Now, this is basically in a birth chart showing kind of a challenge, and it is nice as a nation that we do not have interceptions. Means every sign has one house cusp running through it, in that sense making things much more smooth in its overall development. One thing leads to the next naturally. So let's move on. I could say many more things naturally about this chart. I guess this Jupiter-Mars opposition should be mentioned, and also that beautiful mystic rectangle we have here between the Sun, Uranus, Earth, Jupiter and Mars. Mars in Virgo here with Astrea and the North Node and Juno all in the 6th house, which is that multicultural togetherness, support, accomplishing something, working on difficulties, incorporating them, and being ready to help one another. All of that very practical in the end, able to do with difficulties and with tensions and with, I would even say, repulsive things that is necessary here. Hilanom bringing healing. And then TX 300, which again, those of you who listen to my podcast regularly know this is related to the trucker convoy. A very loud voice, something which can't be overseen, overheard. That is TX 300, an amplifier of sorts. So it really is a collective theme here, which Canada is obliged in a way by existence to really go in that direction of harvest, integration, unity. Service is a very big word. Healing, health, togetherness, all of that. Now, guess what? If we look at the new moon for Ottawa on this coming Sunday, just the day prior to the elections, you see that powerful amplification of exactly those degrees, as you see, this 18th degree of Pisces, Virgo, 18th degree of Virgo, Pisces. It's obvious. This is the right timing, the perfect timing. This is like a triple or a quadruple number. It's something showing this is the perfect moment for this to happen. And if we overlay the two charts, then it becomes even more obvious. You see there's lots of Chiron going on here. Chiron, the wounded healer here by transit within less than a degree here on the ascendant, Canadian ascendant, and vice versa, the Canadian Chiron here within 10 minutes of arc here, conjunct to North Node, the transiting North Node here, which is also conjunct Saturn right now. So it is that general sobriety which has been felt. I mean, just this weekend alone, yesterday we had the Venus-Saturn conjunction, the second one. There will be a third one eventually, a few weeks down the road. But I hope I say that right. Maybe I'm not. Let me just now quickly scan my notes. Maybe I'm wrong here. Yeah, this was the third one. This was the final one. Yes. We just had 2 days ago the final Venus-Saturn conjunction. Anyway, what I want to say is Chiron is the doctor, that really good physician who is able to find the knack of how to initiate healing. It is really the art of healing, which in a nutshell is being able to see what's wrong, to make a good diagnose, and then doing the right things based on that recognition of what is wrong, and allowing for the healing to happen. And sometimes this is a painful process to really get things into the right place. Just think of having broken a bone, how painful it can be to bring these bones in alignment with one another before you can put a cast on and things like that. That's kind of the energy we are feeling strongly right now, not just here in Canada. That is actually a global thing. It just happens to be really amplified at this point in time very strongly here in Canada, as you see. But as you probably know and have and remember, Chiron was very prominent already in the solar eclipse 1 year ago in April 2024, and there has a build-up being a build-up with that Chiron influence importance over the last few years, naturally triggered with the big health crisis which we were all duped into 5 years ago. So the new moon's ascendant here on Venus, the Canadian chart, it shows that it will be something pleasant which is coming. Hopefully everybody is able to really see that, also those who have been more inspired by the state-owned media, who has been so one-sided in their reporting here in Canada. It's almost painful. But I'm having the strong feeling Canadians have woken up, they have come long ways, and we will have a really good majority for a new government, conservative naturally, as you probably know. We have our beautiful, beautiful is certainly true too, but most better said, this excellent premier here in Alberta, Danielle Smith, who is a trailblazer in many ways to open Canada up again and take down all the barriers and hindrances and the fake laws and whatever carbon tax and all that stuff, which is based on that lie of so-called global warming, yes, global warming. Anyway, I'm getting off track here, but yes, it's very similar to the United States. I guess it is the healthy move in this present world towards what they call right-wing extremism. Anyway, we can handle any of such labels. If we further look at the Canadian chart here in resonance to the transits, you see the Mars-Pluto opposition here on the Canadian Mercury in the 5th house in Leo. Yes, this is certainly rattling through people's perception. This is the showing the discourse, and at times certainly heated and very aggressive at time, I would say, even here, yes, with the black moon here in this position. Yes, there is definitely high tension, and we will hopefully see that people are wake awake enough to see what is best for their interest. And as I say, astrology pretty much shows yes. There's a big yes to this. And I will show you a few more charts here. I will go a little faster, otherwise we won't get through. So this is the midpoint chart between that Taurus new moon of Sunday coming and the Canadian base chart. What stands out here? Many things, naturally. First of all, that Gemini new moon, lots of Gemini energy here in this midpoint chart, which brings again the focus on Mercury here, actually in an upper conjunction, which is one of the most powerful alignments one can have in a chart. Is the upper conjunction, that is Mercury behind the Sun, moving at double the speed, being really at the place of fullness, of culmination in its 4-monthly rhythm, and the moon and the sun on either side, which is a containment, which shows that Mercury has high honors here in this chart. And if we overlay this again to the Canadian chart, just think of where that is, 7 degrees Gemini. I haven't really looked myself, but here you see that is squaring Jupiter and Mars. So yes, again showing that everything ties in with one another. These energies are nourishing the and in that sense lifting up the general frequency and also the general energy in those mental dimensions Mercury rules of observing what is around us, and that is not just intellectual. This can be deeply emotional too, particularly when the moon is involved. The midpoint axis here, the 10th house, 4th house cusp, is interesting, as this matches again with Chiron here, the North Node. So again another hit with Chiron, and in this midpoint chart Chiron conjunct Jupiter and Astrea and Juno. Again, the healing of relationships is shown here. Jupiter bringing its beneficial influence of generosity and big-heartedness, of inclusiveness, of opening the doors to a deep inner abundance. All of that naturally here with Astrea, who always shows that this is a work in progress. Cancer rising, yes, it's an emotional, deeply emotional affair we have here to deal with. If we now overlay all the 3 charts we have looked at so far, the Canadian birth chart inside, in the center the new moon, and in the outer ring we have the midpoints. So just want to point out very few things, as I already did here, that cluster 28th degree Pisces, the nodes Chiron, then here we have Well, there's so much going on in this chart. I guess I just keep going. You can anytime stop the video and then take a screenshot and then look at it more closely. These are the secondary progressions. Just thought this was interesting. That is 1 day after birth counting for 1 year. That is a general key we use in astrology based on fractals. So this is whatever 200, not even, how old is Canada? 1867. 160 years or so we are approaching soon. So this is about 160 days after Canada's birth. See, since it's birth with the sun here at 8 degrees or something, Cancer, that many days have gone by. The 14th degree of Sagittarius, actually that is the American nation's ascendant based on the Sibley chart by the Sag rising chart of the Declaration of Independence, which I also like to call the New World chart, as it really was the foundation of a whole new way of governing and living with the wonderful constitution it brought in. Anyway, I found this resonance interesting in context of Canada having been really in the news as becoming the 51st state or such. And there is something to this. I'm actually a proponent of this idea. I think borders in general have to come down. Everything has to be merged naturally in a ordered process, and people have to be supported where they are originating from, originally are. We have to allow their lives to become better where they have their families, their friends. This is definitely once you do that, then nobody wants to immigrate into other countries and overwhelm populations with other cultures. When you're happy at your home, why go anywhere? So that is kind of the answer to that. But on the other hand, yes, borders have to come down. They're all artificial, and why not start with Canada and the US? And there is definitely a mutual benefit which will come out of that. Yes, again the 18th degree here, this time 19th degree of Virgo Pisces, so again emphasizing that same theme of togetherness and service, that important conjunction here of helping, standing together, understanding that we as a nation, in that sense, many individuals holding up the same ethical codes, that we can overcome the greatest adversities and difficulties and dissolve them. Helion is one of the centaur planets, the wife of, or the lover of Celerus. Celerus got killed in battle and she grieved so much, she wanted to be with him, so she killed herself. So this is kind of the story of following your heart regardless, even if it leads to your personal demise or death. I mean, to go to the ultimate place, to be with your beloved it's also that story of Romeo and Julia, that same energy of having really transcending the physical. So this is all very, very beautiful energies, which when we see it as a whole, this is inspiring, and it will set an example, as Canada always has and always will, a forerunner of what's to come next. So anyway, this is these are the secondary progressions. Here we overlay just quickly with the Aries moon now by progression. This started about 2 months ago. Was that fresh wind which came in, and also that Setna conjunction, Setna actually being in the very first degree of Aries. Again, Setna related to water, to the deep, to that wisdom which is stored in the depth of the oceans, which now all comes up to the surface. Just today I had this beautiful insight listening to Veda Austin, where she speaks about her fascination now with autistic people, of what wonderful deep gifts they have. And yes, Setna in Gemini now since about a year speaks for this new understanding, as Setna is mute in a way, living deep in the sea, speechless, and so she's kind of really also representing that aloofness, aloneness, isolation, living in a different space than in the not in the realm of speech, definitely, and then telepathy comes in naturally as a wonderful gift to channel these deep thoughts and insights autistic people have and bring them to the surface, likewise bringing something from the deep ocean to the surface. So it is interesting that Sedna, yes, is similar to Saturn in many ways too, here with the moon, and being a very powerfully placed minor planet here in the Canadian chart to start with. Let's move on. What else I have here, just to show you all the evidence I compiled to make my point that this definitely will be a breakthrough. We are having here, this is the minor progressions. They make a new moon on May the 1st. That's just 3-4 days after those elections. A very, very beautiful chart this is as such, with Uranus here now in Virgo here in this progress chart, in this beautiful trine to Sun and Moon. It's almost a mystical moment we are celebrating here. Something is opening up to a way more profound experience of reality, and starting here in Canada, here with that North Node in the final degree of Capricorn, and by transit the Black Moon is here. So again, this shows us that we have now an opportunity to really let all that shadow energy come up to the surface, to be seen, to be looked at, to be resolved, similar to what's happening down south, where all the corpses are pulled out of the closets, literally, for people to see, to have that moment of shock. Well, I didn't see that coming, and naturally this is a deep upset we have to work with. Many people fall out of the clouds literally when they are confronted with what has truly happened. Again, one of the aspects of Chiron, having to face the diagnose, to remove all the lies and allow that pain to be felt of I was wrong, and not giving yourself a bad time for that, but just being objective and see that you were not the only one. And it was something which was almost impossible to fully evade. I mean, we all have our path of waking up to different levels of reality, and it is for everyone the same pains will be felt at these different stages of expansion, of understanding. And at the same time, we have to see that it is all here to help that amazing process to be. It is literally, the devil is working for God. The devil is God's workshop, as it says. As everything is divine, you can't divide and put half on this side and the other half here. Then we never will find deep unison within ourselves, because what is outside is always a mirror of what is inside. So the more we can make peace and go to that place where we truly see that everything that is bad, so to say, in the end can have, at least can give it the potential of being something which works out in our favor. Anyway, what okay, I just want to do this overlay here quickly too. That's the minor progressions again we just looked at for May 1st. Outside, inside Canada's base chart. And yes, we could again go deeper into it. I leave it at this and go to what is happening in by transit on that 2nd of May, which will be a big moment too, as Mercury enters Aquarius heliocentrically. Here, entering this important conjunction which sets the tone for the whole month of May, which is really opening our minds in a factual and scientific way, going by a double-blind study, so to say, an experiment where you completely put your personal liking aside and come from a place of neutrality to see all the pros and cons and work it out. And it so happens that there's one particular minor planet which is named after an African deity, Kumdima, who is in conjunction with Jupiter right now, being exact on the 4th of May. And what has been found by astrologers experimenting with that planet in many charts, looking at what it reflects, have come to the understanding this is the ability to exactly do that, to come from a neutral place like an investigator and put your personal belief and whatever you would normally tend to the back burner, and not being swayed by your personal beliefs, and be very neutral and come to a opposite potentially conclusion. It is that energy which allows for that to happen. So this is the chart for Ottawa, by the way, here for that moment now in the geocentric perspective, and has Hygeia here at the 4th house cusp. You remember 2020, 23, 23, here it is Canada's ascendant. This is 23, 24 here for Ottawa, the source point of this chart, which means this shift of energy is super helpful to come to a full realization of the potentials which are now opening up before us. And that it will be the month of May. It will be a great symphony of new openings, new dimensions becoming visible, literally potentials we have not even been dreaming of. Just also think of the peace process which is now underway in the Ukraine, which is within reach now, and then we can definitely, there's still quite a few problems to be tackled, but one by one May will be making a big step in the right direction in that sense. And this is one of the key moments here, that alignment of Mercury. Again, I'm just scanning through here the charts quickly. I want to get to the end here. The Australia-Jupiter opposition of May 4, I found this also interesting for Ottawa here. And again, you see the 23rd degree, or actually I should say the 24th degree, this time of Gemini and Sag. Before we had the 24th of Taurus and the 24th of Aries being the ascendant. So there is many things going on. Now Jupiter, I just mentioned it here with Kundima, and Australia always showing this is work, this is a process, we have to get our hands dirty and do the work and get involved and be on it, take the pain of an extended shift, of having to work extra hours after midnight, things like that. That is, so there's lots of work ahead, but there's the promise of material success. That is Pluto in the 2nd house, one of the best placements for Pluto. Here you see the overlay quickly, as I mentioned, the 23rd degree here of Sag on top of the chart, 9th house, Jupiter at the 3rd house here by transit. Another very, very bright sign, strong sign that we are reaching out to one another, opening each other's minds. The communication flow is multiplying. New dendrites are literally growing in the nation. Yes, there's a big rewiring taking place, you could also say, in that all-important 3rd house. Again, Mercury, where the Sun, the Moon and Uranus is here in the Canadian chart. And I guess I leave it at this. thank you for being here and listening if you're still here. If not, that's fine too. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.